All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Jackman Radio. I'm very excited tonight. He finally cleared legal. We had months and months of meetings with the lawyers back and forth between Dershowitz and Johnny Cochran's dream team. But I'm so excited to announce tonight that we are joined by the host of No Way Jose, the one and only Mr. Jose Galison. Jose, how you doing, man?
Doing all right. I'm glad to finally have made it here. I feel like this is an accomplishment all of its own. I'm glad to be here to talk to you guys. So.
Yeah, we wanted to have you on for a while, and yeah, it seems like your schedule's been picking up too, man. You've been doing some epic shows lately.
Yeah, I mean, sort of. I took the week off because I just got a strike, and I was like, well, I actually didn't have anything scheduled, and I was like, well, I guess this is just I'll take this as a sign to take a week off. So that way, because the strike only lasts for a week. They got me for questioning that a religious ceremony we hold every 4 years. That's a good way to say it, I guess.
Which was a complete fraud, as we know. It was totally rigged. We're not going to say what it was, Jose, but it was totally rigged.
Yes, exactly. And it's funny, too, because a lot of us had the rigged one, and then it was like top. That was like, nope, stolen. And I'm pretty sure that's probably what did it, but whatever, I'm cool with it.
TopLobsta is like, yeah, I live in Florida now. We're going to say stolen because, it's the Brooklyn, Florida. Brooklyn meets Florida, right?
Yeah, but that's surprisingly, I've got almost 200 episodes. I've gotten one warning before, but it was for I had it wasn't a Jinx intro, but it was, or edit, but it was something similar. And it was like a little highlight with like a music video of all the messed up stuff the feds have done. And obviously there's a lot of violence, like Gaddafi, stuff like that. And and they got me for violence. And this is all stuff that was that was on the evening news and shit. So it's like, I mean, okay, I get it. Maybe some algo just saw random violence and plugged it, but whatever. This one, I'm more like, what the hell? The other one I could probably chalk up to just like an algo thing. But I'm surprised I've gone this far. I've really pushed the limit.
Right.
And
yeah.
I got away with it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Your new intro, though, was everything. Mike and I, the last couple of weeks, have been doing the intro theme to each other, the music, and just kind of, it's been our spirit animal. How does it sound, Mike?
The way the girl dances, it's like, the guys are making the money. How does the girl dance, Eric?
Yep.
Yeah, the girl's like.
It's a weeb dance, just a little ooh senpai
Those
dance.
are the new 87,000 IRS agents just churning the butter, dude. Just churning the inflation for Brandon. They can't do it quick enough.
Yeah, but I thought you were talking about my Jinx ones I've been using on the other stuff.
The Jinx, that Jinx guy. So Clint had him on his show.
Oh my god, yeah,
dude, his videos are. I don't think you've seen them, Mike. This is on Twitter. This account called Jinx.
I'm not on Twitter.
He does these really hot 30-second to a minute long, minute and a half hot edits of the most fire videos, whether it's talking about Epstein or 9/11 or the wars or CIA shit or the drug war, and the edits and the music that he uses in the it's just it's incredible, Jose.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really all over the place. It goes from crazy, legit, conspiracies like OKC with some, and then it goes into, he'll do edits that are weird stuff like is Trump a time traveler? It's all over the place. It's weird stuff. But it's amazing. He's actually he is definitely the one who's responsible from OKC series because he had the edit I use the most often in the show because I've used a few different ones because he has a few different OKC edits, but the one I've used the most is the one that's that I saw, and that's got I kind of already knew OKC was kind of horseshit, but and I knew that the official story was off, but I never really did a deep dive, and then that video kind of because it hit on the Terrence Yeeki angle, and then that kind of tugged at my heartstrings, and then I started digging deeper, and I was like, holy moly! And the more I dug, the more I was like, holy crap! And it's I'm at something I think I've done 5 episodes plus a bonus episode. I'll probably have at least 2 more, and I wouldn't be surprised if I end up doing more, other stuff that kind of surrounds it. So yeah, it's a deep hole when you go down that one.
It is, man. Years ago, I watched A Noble Lie. I'm sure you've seen that documentary. And then I came back and watched it kind of recently. And after we had Scott Horton on for our 100th episode, we touched on it a little bit, and I looked into it some more. So I was really excited to see that you're doing an actual kind of series on it. And you had that fellow there, Richard Booth. Is he like a researcher or a journalist, or what's his background and connection to all of it?
I forget. I think it was it Roger Charles, is that dude's name? But he was kind of the protege of one of the main researchers of OKC. He's just kind of a guy researching, just it's I guess like, it's the same thing as like we could call ourselves like media personalities. It's like okay, like I'm not saying that to like talk him down. He's a dude who's just got interested, started digging, collecting the information, and then he eventually over time got in touch with I think Scott Horton, and was like he kind of is like he like essentially is using the Libertarian Institute site as like a repository for all of his research, all the different whether it be videos or article clips, kind of reveal different stuff all over the place. And yeah, so I don't know if he's technically part of the Libertarian Institute. I don't know specifically, but he is like their OKC guy essentially, because he's the one who's kind of like put that all together. So all of his research is on the Libertarian Institute, and I think this I guess is a point I brought up a lot. Something with the OKC thing. I think the time that it came out kind of plays into the I guess the magic of it, if you will, because like or to the modern day of like digging into it, because it happened in like the 90s. It was at the spot where like internet and stuff like that was just kind of happening. So it was at that spot where it was like the information's out there. It was just like kind of hard to retrieve it, and now we're in a spot where things are getting easier to find, and so now the information is kind of coming together. I mean, not that it has been coming together for a while now, but it just kind of builds and builds and builds. And I think that's part of why there's so much wild stuff too, because I think the feds were still in this phase where they were cocky. Because like in the 50s, they could do some crazy stuff. Like you look at like MK Ultra, COINTELPRO, Operation Chaos, stuff like that, and you're like, they're just like doing crazy stuff and just getting away with it. But it's like it's the 50s. What is someone gonna do? Post on the internet? Like tell their friend about it?
They're gonna get the can with the string on it. Hey, the feds did it. And then 2 days later get a response.
Exactly. Like if it's not getting on the evening news, it's not really getting spread in that kind of way. So, anyways, I rambled about that enough. But yeah, it is. Yeah, that's who he is. He's great. He's a prime autist, and he's put his powers of it towards OKC. Like I'm not even kidding. I do think he's actually genuinely autistic, but in like a good way. And like I'm going to become a OKC
completely weaponized, Mike.
Yeah,
when it's weaponized and it's aimed at something.
Yeah.
There's a targeted campaign.
So I've looked at Oklahoma City a little bit here and there, but probably what would you say are like a couple of really big takeaways from all the research you've done, Jose, and talking to him, if you had to tell somebody why the op is so fishy and why it's not what we were told what it is?
I mean, really, there's so many things you can go into. I mean, I guess I'll just bring up a few things that were probably the most intriguing to me. I think the Yeeky angle is the one that like sucks people in, because he was the guy who was one of the first responders. He was like saved multiple people from the fucking the OKC bombing. And it was never quite said exactly what he knew, but then we're going to end up. We haven't touched on that yet in our series, but we will. But a lot of people have touched on the Terrence Yeeky already, so there's plenty of like if you people out there want to go dig into it, there's already plenty of information about Terrence Yeeky. But he essentially, said to a lot of people that like, hey, there was weird stuff. It was also looking like he was trying to link up with other people, maybe getting plans in place to kind of like he thought something was up. Like I think. If I remember correctly, he actually told his wife, and she did a radio interview that like basically was like what they said happened didn't happen. I forget how he worded it. Like I'm paraphrasing it, but he basically said something like that. But he was always really vague with her, and I think she even said something along the lines of like he implied like he didn't want to tell her kind of deal. Like he was trying to protect her. Like he was even I think trying to like take out I don't know if it was a life insurance policy. Actually, I think they were technically separated at the time. He was trying to get remarried simply for their life insurance purposes, and he was doing a lot. There's a whole like hour-long radio interview with her if anyone's like really that interested, like from like years ago, where she goes into her whole story and from her side, and it's pretty wild. And yeah, he died. The official they ruled it as a suicide, but if you look into it, it is one of the most insane suicides you'll ever see. It's like kind of like a Hillary Clinton type suicide. Like it was like slashes all over him. He supposedly like bled in his car. Something ridiculous, like went hundreds of yards, if it might even have been a half mile to a mile or more, into another field. And then there was like a bullet that went through at a weird angle. Like the trajectory is like no one like kind of like this, like no one shoots him. Like it's a weird way to shoot yourself. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could, but like it just a lot of weird stuff, a whole bunch of cuts all over him. It definitely he didn't like it. It's pretty silly to say it was a suicide. It definitely looked like he got off. And that happened to Kenneth Trenadu as well, although I don't think he's exactly as much of a sympathetic character. I think Yiki really tugs on the heartstrings more because he was a cop. Like, that's why he was there. He was kind of like, and I know, like, I'm not sure. I know you guys are libertarianish. I'm not exactly sure your specific flavor, but I'm like ANCAP. So I'm not a huge fan of cops, but there is still a little part of me that when I see like somebody like a cop or somebody that's doing something, trying to do the right thing, and then they get screwed over, like it is kind of like you kind of feel bad because you get it. Like they were trying to be the good cop. They were trying to do the noble thing, and he got off. Now Kenneth Trenadu, he was a prisoner. And supposedly he was getting his life together and stuff. I don't know the whole sob story around it, but he got offed in prison. Same kind of thing. I think they ruled as a suicide, but he was like, you could visibly look at his body and see he was beat to shit. Like someone beat the hell out of him, and a lot of other weird stuff too. And come to find out, I guess he looked like, I forget which one, but he looked very much like one of the, I think maybe Richard Lee Guthrie. He looked very much like one of the other accomplices of Timothy McVeigh that wasn't really explicitly named in the official narrative. So it sounds like they thought it was him and they offed him, thinking that, kind of tie up loose ends. But yeah, the other two, I feel like I'm rambling, but there's just so much here. The Andreas Straussmeyer is one of the biggest ones. Because he was a guy that, like, if you look into like some more conspiratorial ones, most people breeze over him. But he was the guy who met with, McVeigh multiple times. I can't really spout off all the different connections, but he was definitely highly connected. I highly suggest going to take out my series, and we did almost a whole episode on Straussmeyer.
Yeah.
And he was the guy who was from like Germany. He glows like the sun. Everything about him is like, this dude is a glowy. And we're talking like overseas glowy, like working with our glowies. It's pretty wild. It's hard for me to like go over all information, but he's one of the connections that's really wild. The other one's Roger Moore, which once again, both of these characters are characters, even in the more conspiratorial like place you look at, most people breeze over these guys. Roger Moore was the guy that even in the official narrative, they'll talk about him, but they only breeze over him. And that he is the guy that supposedly shortly before the bombing, McVeigh and Nichols robbed him. Or it may have actually just been Nichols. I think it was technically just Nichols, but, in accomplices, whatever. They robbed him and got a bunch of his stuff because he had a ton of guns, I forget exactly, but, things of monetary value, whether it be gold, silver, actual money, I don't remember. But eventually they stole him, took a ton of stuff off him, and this was stuff they used to have, to be able to fund their operation. Apparently, in the official stories, he was like, "Oh my God, they stole from me," and it's kind of one of those things that's way too convenient. You're like, "Well, you stole from a guy that you already had a relationship with because they had known each other before, and you stole a ton of guns, ton of money." And it was like, oopsies, he stole from me, and almost just kind of seemed like a convenient excuse. And if you dig into that more, you can see. Also, Roger Moore has a ton of Fed connections. That's kind of the through line with a lot of these characters. A lot of them have a ton of Fed connections to where it's like, okay, like, yeah, sure, maybe you could make the case they're not a Fed, but you get to the point where it's like, all right, we're kind of past the point of plausible deniability. It's getting a little ridiculous.
This thing's glowing real bright.
Yes, exactly.
Working hand in glowy glove,
Yes.
And over the years, I've kind of had back and forth feelings about McVeigh and his level of involvement. But after watching a couple of your episodes, I would say, he was definitely one of the masterminds and planners. He drove the truck up to the building, but there was clearly somebody else with him, and they have the footage of that, and they've never released that. And I think actually former Congressman Dana Rohrabacher was actually pretty open into questioning Oklahoma City. He lives up in Maine now, so I'm going to definitely look into trying getting him on the program. But did you and Booth talk at all about who that other person might have been that was in the truck with McVeigh that walked away after parking it?
Yeah, we've talked about that a few times on a few different occasions. We did, I think in one of the more recent episodes, we did go a little bit more in depth into the whole John Doe 2 aspect of the story. And because there's so many different characters involved in this story, because he had so many different accomplices, and it looks like a lot of them did play some part in the OKC. bombing as opposed to just the official narrative that was just him and Nichols. And
Right.
yeah, God, I zoned out. What was the question again? John Doe 2. My bad. Okay. Yeah, none of the characters match up because I believe John Doe 2 was supposed to be kind of like a darker complexion, kind of a ethnically ambiguous looking type fella, kind of a TopLobsta, if you will. Kind of my build, a little more muscular.
Could be Middle Eastern or could be Brooklyn, Puerto Rican.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So none of the major characters really seem to jive with him. So that is one of the big things is like, who is this guy? He's also, I think, shown up in a few other places and like, sightings of that specific person. That's one of those ones we don't know. We just don't know. There are so many, hands in the pot of this like story that it legit just could just be another person. There's so many different connections and different trails you can go down. Because he had been doing stuff prior to. He had been involved in like militia movements robbing banks or what? I don't remember what they were robbing, but he'd done a lot of other stuff and made a lot of other connections and a lot of weird connections as well. And he'd been doing stuff for a while. So there are a lot of weird little trails you can go down here. But so far as John Doe 2, I don't know. And I don't think really there's a whole lot of good, but they do have, then once again, I guess to your earlier question of like things that kind of like open your eyes to it. That's one of the other ones is the security footage. They have the security footage.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's a receipt for it, and there's the internal documents show that they saw it and they had it and what it showed.
Yeah, and I think their official story is that they lost it or something because they're like, yep, we have it, and then I think they tried to like get it in court, and they're like, oh, well, I don't know where it is. But although later there was a Fed, I wish I could remember the story better, but this one Booth brought up that there was some Fed who tried to sell it to some major news network for like $1 million. And then obviously the major news network tipped off the Feds and never played that. So, yeah, I mean, it seems to be it's definitely out there somewhere. Maybe it'll come out at some point. Maybe it won't. One thing Richard Booth brought up, which is a good point, is he's kind of concerned, and I'm kind of a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised either if they, do like drop it at some point. Like, oh, we found it, and they do some video editing, and oh, look, just Timothy McVeigh. You see, all you crazy conspiracy theorists, it was just Timothy McVeigh, and it sounds like kooky stuff, but in this modern day, that's not outside the realm of like what is possible.
They could totally deep fake it. They could have TopLobsta go in and just airbrush it, and it would just
put a giant dick in there or something and say that was the accomplice.
Yeah, people would go for it.
It's like Jose, that footage of Flight 175 hitting the World Trade Center that dropped 20 years after the fact.
Yeah, that was
I don't
weird.
know if you saw that. That was fucking wild to see that, dude.
Yeah, I don't know what that angle is. That whole thing for me, I go so schizo. I'm not like a no planer or anything crazy like that.
Jinx did a video about that.
I think so. But like
the guy,
to me, that just reads as like if I have to come up with a crazy conspiracy theory, I genuinely think that it may just be them fucking with us. Like we're gonna fuck with the crazy schizos and be like, "Yep, all you guys were like no plane. Look." Because I do think there was probably. I mean, I've never done a deep 9/11 dive, but a lot of like the no planers or it's only one plane. I don't go that far. I do think it happened. I think there are definitely weird Israel and Saudi connections, and so that's more where the real hot issues at. I know a lot of people go like, "Oh, controlled demolition." Maybe, I don't know. I kind of doubt it. And then people go into like no plane or just one plane. I'm like, all right, we're getting a little crazy here.
Yeah. Those are sidebars just to distract from the real good stuff,
Yeah, which is like that's kind of my theory on this. Is like the Feds are just like, you know what? Let's rile them up a little bit, make them seem more crazy.
Stir the pot. Now, did you ever look into any of the stuff about McVeigh being part of a undercover unit when he was in the military, where he would pretend to be a militia guy and infiltrate these movements and get in with them and run operations and stuff?
PatCon. I don't think he ever explicitly said it was PatCon. Once again, I want to tell everybody a lot of the stuff I'm saying, I may not recall it perfectly. So definitely go watch the series. That may fuck up the details. Yeah. But
look at Richard Booth's work, which can be found at antiwar.com or
libertarianinstitute.com, or is it .org? .com, I think. One of the two. But yeah, someone can look it up. I'm sure someone in the chat will put it. But God, what was it? Damn it! What was the question? I'm zoning out today.
Sorry, I didn't.
Well, talking about McVeigh and PatCon and being undercover, glowy part of an operation.
Yeah, Yeah, no, that was like, there's a lot to support that he at least said that, because I mean, whether it's true or not is
Right.
to be not to is like it's one of those things, because like and there have been people who've admitted this is a thing that does happen, is they would take people from the military, even specifically, you know, I guess because the thing was he did, and this is basically confirmed, he did go. He was in the military. He did go for, I forget which one, but for some special force unit. Might have been Green Berets. I don't recall, because he was Army. But the story is, the official story is that he had issues with like his foot or something, because he'd been on a long deployment, and you know, like just kind of hadn't really been able to take care of himself as well out there out in the sandbox, and so he just wasn't up in like, you know, peak condition for this, and so he ended up failing out of, you know, special forces training. At least that's what he told a lot of people, you know, because like the story is that's supposed to be the official story, like, and but then he did tell some people, I believe, I think it might have been like a letter to his sister,
in a letter.
Yeah, some shit like that, where he like basically was like, no, I got contacted to be in a special unit or some stuff.
Right.
And there have been other people have corroborated this is a thing that they do.
Mm-hmm.
It's called sheep dip.
Sheep dipping.
Would take it, yeah, and they would. And the thing is, the problem is like people looking for evidence, and I know it's kind of like convenient if you're going to conspiracy world. And they're like, look at you, you crazy people with no evidence, jumping to conclusions. Like there would be no evidence for this. There just wouldn't, because the thing is, they basically I don't know if they technically get rid of your records or what, but they're basically you know, out of the prying eyes of the public for essentially eternity, or gone, you know, one of the two. So yeah, good luck finding any evidence of that. But yeah, it is heavily rumored he was involved in like PatCon, which it definitely seems that way. Because I do know when he did get picked up, one of the first things he was kind of singing to the cops when he first got picked up. Kind of basically like, hey, you know, guys, don't worry, this will be all okay. I'm one of the feds, you know, and like had a whole story. And he was talking about how I think he even, if I recall correctly, I believe while he was waiting to go, and he said something along the lines of how they would run drugs for the feds to get, you know, fund their operations, which, you know, doesn't sound that crazy now, because you know, like say some crazy got pulled in and was making bullshit up, like in modern day you'd be like, okay, yeah, well, you just watched a few movies. But in 95, that wasn't like a common knowledge thing, and that wasn't thing that had been completely admitted at that time, that is 100% a thing the feds have done, is they would, you know, run drugs and do shit like that. So I mean, that's weird, you know, that he kind of like copped up to that. I don't think he ever specifically said PatCon, but he did say something along the lines of like, you know,
Undercover.
kind of like infiltrating militias and stuff, which that's another thing, you know, kind of like the same point of the drug running thing, is that wasn't something that had been admitted at the time. And then later it came out that, oh yeah, we had a PatCon operation, which was essentially exactly what Timothy McVeigh
And then
explaining.
isn't there some kind of creepy footage of him that might be him in a tank?
Yeah, Richard Booth doesn't seem to think much of it, and I don't really think a whole lot of it either.
Is that him, or they haven't proven it's him?
Supposedly the guy, the I forget what specifically was, some director or some shit. He of something. I guess he was at a military base and he took a video, and then later he's like, "Oh my god, this looks just like McVeigh." And the idea to kind of prove the whole PatCon link, the idea that he was still in the military after being out of the military,
right?
And I mean, you look at I watched the video, and it doesn't. I mean, they look alike. I could believe it's the same person, but Timothy McVeigh is also the generic white dude face. He just is. He's a very generic looking white guy. He just is. And like, so it's not that crazy. Like, I even joked with Booth. Like I could totally believe if like you made up some crazy story and someone's like, yeah, this is Timothy McVeigh, he survived. I could be like, okay, I can see it. Like even like Booth kind of has a similar face structure, long face, you know, kind of a lot of same stuff. Same thing with McVeigh. McVeigh looked very similar to a lot of people. I guess supposedly the big aspect, the sort of smoking gun, not quite smoking, is that the guy, I guess, took it to like because the guy talked in it, the guy he's claiming McVeigh, he took it to some voice guy and he was like, said it was something like an 85 or something % match, which I don't know. I hear that and I don't really feel like that's that strong. I don't know. But apparently the guy said supposedly that I would testify in court that is entirely him. I guess saying 85% voice match is good enough to say that. I don't know. Apparently, according to Booth, I forget the details, there have been other people who have done research that kind of cast doubt upon that to see. I guess someone followed up with that supposed, voice expert, and he was like, "No, I didn't fucking say that. What are you talking about?" So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, and that's one of the great things about the series, and with bringing Booth along with me, he doesn't go into the fantastical, and if it's something that's not backed up or doesn't have, it's because it's kind of like with that one, like he kind of like implied, like, I don't know, it could be, but there's not really anything here other than he kind of looks like him. That's really it. So
yeah, and to go along with government, drug running and intelligence agencies being involved in drug running and bringing it into America, you of course have Iran-Contra back in the 80s, and later on, the crack epidemic from
Roger
the 80s.
Moore had connections to the Iran-Contra.
That makes sense. And then Barry Seal and another great 9/11 researcher that I don't think gets enough coverage or play is Daniel Hopsicker, and he actually went down to the flight schools in Florida not long after the 9/11 attacks happened, and basically discovered that the flight schools down there were fronts for drug running. Huffman Aviation, where Muhammad Atta showed up in July of 2000. That same week, one of the owners of the flight school got busted with 43 pounds of heroin, one of the largest drug busts. The same week that the hijacker who flew into the first World Trade Center building on Flight 11. So he had a great book, Daniel Hopsicker, called Welcome to Terrorland, which talks all about those connections and the Dutch national Rudy Deckers who ran the place and Wally Hilliard who financed it. And I'm hoping to do maybe a show about that leading up to the 21st anniversary. Because
you had the balls to ask Jeb Bush about that, Mike.
Yeah, I asked Jeb about it because Hopsicker did some great on-the-ground research about that. He talked to a cop. You're mentioning cops earlier, man. I think like any profession, man, there's mostly good people and people who want to do the right thing. But like anything, there can be a propensity for corruption or people wanting to use their power to abuse people and abuse the system. But Hopsicker dug up this local cop who had won awards and was great with the community, and he was like, "Yeah, the day after 9/11, a C-130 showed up down here at the flight school with a Ryder truck that was driven onto it that had all the records from the Huffman Aviation Flight School, and aboard that C-130 was Governor Jeb Bush. They took all the records and then they flew away, and no one ever saw him again." So
Ryder truck, you say?
Yeah, they could have been driven by McFay and McAfee. They could both still be alive. They were driving it. They were working on it. He was a mechanic for the truck. But that's a whole area of 9/11 you don't hear a lot about because everyone's arguing about Building 7 and thermite and the towers and what happened at the Pentagon. And I think that just distracts from a lot of the really great nitty gritty and maybe more nuanced and maybe less like flashy stuff related to it. But I think it's really important. It's a huge crux of it because Muhammad Atta was hanging out with a guy named Wolfgang Boehringer, who later turned out was a CIA asset. That was his drinking buddy. And we were told, well, no, the hijackers were devout Muslims. They didn't drink. And it's like, well, there's stories down in Florida of them hanging out with strippers and drinking and drugs and wads of cash and wearing airline outfits and all kinds of crazy stuff. So there's a whole other story there that you don't hear about a lot, but Daniel Hopsicker goes into it quite a bit. And
go ahead.
I was going to say, like Oklahoma City or Iran-Contra or anything like that. Even the Vietnam, man, there's stories about drugs being smuggled back during the Vietnam War, in body bags and stuff. So it's really dark and illicit, but I think there's a lot of truth to it.
Yeah, I feel like Richard touched on some of the stuff in the Vietnam War, but anyways, I did want to bring up. I did kind of want to touch on. I do find it. I'm like kind of. I don't know. I need to figure out a way to say this better, but. I know a lot of people, especially in like the truther communities or whatever, get like really upset about like I don't know, people like no planers or one planers or some of the more kooky conspiracies. But I do think they have their merit as well because I don't know, at least for me, I love going I listen to Sam Tripoli all the time, like Tinfoil Hat. And don't get me wrong, he goes in some kooky territory sometimes, and I don't believe like 90%.
Michael Jackson's alive. Did you watch that one?
Yeah, that one was pretty wild.
Fire.
There's some stuff I'm like, okay, I don't know if
Fire.
I believe it, but okay, that's interesting.
He did one on
and-
Son of Sam, which
yeah.
was fascinating too.
Yes. Yeah, I watched that. But it's what my point being is like there is something to that. And like for me, I mean maybe it's just someone like once you get better at sifting through information, but I'm completely fine with listening to crazy conspiracy theories and being like, huh, wow, and listen, but like not 100% believe everything I hear. And I don't know if like people are worried that'll happen. And a lot of times some of these crazy conspiracies end up having merit to them. I mean, maybe it's just the people pushing the envelope, but there is definitely a case to say that, like, I don't know, that they do sometimes take the, I don't know, make it look unserious. But I don't know. There's got to be some middle ground because I do think there's merit to the crazy schizos that go in places like that. Those are sometimes some of our best people, I think, but they're also sometimes feds. So I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you remember back in like 2006. A former Bush administration economist, Morgan Reynolds, went on the major mainstream media channels and promoted the idea of cartoon planes. And I think that was done intentionally to distract from the momentum that was coming up with the 5-year anniversary and the family members pushing for a new investigation and people supporting that. I think that got diluted and it got shot into different camps. And it's kind of turned into, for some people, it's a hobby, which I think it's, hey, fine, but I think that's kind of sad if you're really trying to get the really good information out there and convince people who don't look at this otherwise or wouldn't even listen to it. I mean, I think people can speculate and talk and have any theory they want, but if you're trying to convince people like in a serious way, I think going with the best and backed up and sourced and documented research, I think is the best way to go.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, of course, it's fun to talk about conspiracy theories about anything.
Like, for example, Jose, I've done a complete 180 on Flight 77 hitting the Pentagon. For years, I did not think that a plane hit the Pentagon and that they did some other shit there. But now I've been shown so much evidence of the plane being there and the wreckage and DNA of the passengers and pieces of the plane and everything that, Flight 77 hit the Pentagon. So you can go too far and go off the rails. But I do agree with you that it is fun when you have it in check to go into those like Sam Tripoli waters and like Nazis in Antarctica on bases and shit and make Eisenhower closing deals with the aliens, saying we have an intergalactic space treaty with the aliens.
That's amazing, yeah.
And then Michael Jackson faking his death. All that fun stuff.
Oh, here's a fun little scoop for you guys. My wife is a distant, well, not even really that distant, but a fairly close relative to the Admiral Byrd guy. Admiral. I keep saying Admiral. Admiral Byrd, the guy, the whole that whole conspiracy.
What was it called? Jump High or something?
I forget.
Operation
the
High
whole,
Jump.
The whole Antarctica shit. He's like who that whole like conspiracy hinges off of. She is legit related to him. Like her family who lives in North Carolina legit still lives on like the land part of his land.
Really?
Because like apparently like their side of the family descends from like his brother, but I guess when he died he kind of like the land kind of got possessed by his brother, so literally living on the same land as him. And I will say I have my I'm not gonna say too much that way maybe there's some truth to it. I have no idea, but apparently there are still possessions of his out there, and I have my wife. I was like, so we actually I knew they were related, but I didn't know some of the other crazy conspiracies. And my wife started digging into it and talking to her family, and apparently they all knew about it and shit. And apparently there's still like stuff of his around. So
there's Horcruxes.
Yeah, I don't know, like. So I guess they still have some of his like aviation goggles and shit. So I'm like, hey, get your family to look around and see if there's any interesting documents.
Has your wife been to the compound?
Which compound?
The one that he owned that's now in the family.
Well, it's not really necessarily compound. It's just a bunch of land, and they're like, and there's a bunch of people live on it because it's a really country area in North Carolina. So,
that Tripoli dug into. Well, he mentioned he brought it up on Rogan, and Rogan looked at him kind of like, "What the fuck, bro?"
Yeah.
But
no, it's wild.
Yeah, isn't that kind of essentially he's claiming that there's contact with an alien species in Antarctica? Is that kind of?
I don't know the specifics. There's a whole bunch of different ways that conspiracy goes. People take it to Hollow Earth. People take it to aliens. People take it to that there's some sort of he found evidence of a people there, whether they were living currently or they had died previously. It's all over the place. Supposedly there's a there was like a diary of his that I guess you can buy. I don't know how legit it is. I don't.
Right.
I haven't done a whole lot of deep diving,
Yeah.
but I am like told my wife, I'm like, hey, you should because you never know, there could be some document laying around. I'm like,
We should definitely look into that more and do a whole
Yeah,
podcast. Gather as much.
That could be new Indiana Jones thing with Galison, Mike. He's the new Indiana Jones.
Yeah, he has the whip and the hat. And for Fire Pixie, I think we know what Eisenhower was talking about in 1961 when he warned about the military-industrial complex. He was talking about a certain senator from North Carolina named Lindsey. And he said, beware the missiles and beware the bulges in the senator's pants. That's going to come down the line 45, 50 years from now. You ain't going to see it. He ain't going to be wearing a dress, but when he behind closed doors, he is wearing a dress. And it ain't J. Edgar Hoover. It's Auntie Lindsay. And he loves your Fire Pixie, and he appreciates your support.
I think Lindsey Graham's just one of those leprechauns that lives in Hollow Earth, Antarctica.
That could be Lindsay. They could get Lindsay to reach out. Like when they do have disclosure, if they had Lindsey Graham show up, dude, show a little bit of leg, a little bit of boot, some medals. I think we could strike a deal. But Lindsay would probably want to bomb the aliens. Yeah. Like I know ET comes in peace. And if he brings me the right anal probes, maybe I won't bomb him. Maybe I want to trade with him. I want to trade exotic toys. I want to trade interplanetary toys with him, Fire Pixie. We can do it. It's going to take boots, moon boots. So there you go, Fire Pixie. That's for you. Thank you for your support. But yeah, you got to have humor too with it too, man, or you go nuts.
For sure.
Yeah, you can't go all hard, all serious all the time. I mean, hell, I got some good Soma, and I watched a new reality series called Forever Summer the Hamptons. I watched that on Amazon. It's just a bunch of hollow, vapid, retarded trust fund kids running around the Hamptons during the summer, doing black and white affair parties and having parties on the beach, and so detached from reality and in their own bubble. But it was just nice to kind of take a break.
Dude, Jersey Shore was a shit.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of a nicer. Yeah, it was a nicer, more debonair, less trashy Jersey Shore because it was in the Hamptons. Yeah. But you got to
watch, Jose, for like what are you into for if you need like a 2-hour distraction
Soma
to unplug? What kind of Soma do you like to ingest?
Well, distractions wise, I mean, I don't watch a ton of TV. I'll watch some stuff with my kids. I mean, you can see I'm kind of a comic nerd, so I do kind of follow a lot of the pop culture shit there. I mean, I'm not like as fervent about it as I used to. I mean, most of it's kind of disappointing. And for example, the She-Hulk thing, I do want to say I don't think it's I watch it with my daughter. I don't think it's as bad as everyone says it is, but I understand where they're coming from because it is kind of bad. But also, I wasn't expecting much more because in the comics, like She-Hulk sometimes is written that way because she's kind of like a feminist icon. So sometimes they write her like an obnoxious feminist. So I wasn't really that surprised. Like, yeah, this is the character you're working with. I mean, you were surprised they went that route? Okay. Anyways, but podcast wise, I know I like to do Kill Tony.
It's great. Hinchcliffe's great.
Kill Tony's good. I think there's one other comedy podcast I listen to. I'm trying to remember what it is. Legion of Skanks I listen to regularly. And then Sam Tripoli, I still kind of I see that as a relaxing thing as well. Because it is like, once again, it's like I'm not like, oh my God, the fucking Khazarians are running the world. Like I don't immediately jump to that, but it is interesting because you're like, it does take you down some weird ones, and you're like, okay, well, that's interesting. All right. And you can kind of start applying that thought to other things. And so there's usually a grain of truth in some of the crazy shit. So, I don't know, implemented in my thinking, try not to get too schizo, but I don't know. I'm doing shit all the time. So I don't really have a whole lot of stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, I very rarely watch TV, but comedy podcasts occasionally, not a whole lot. But yeah, and then Tower Power Hour is kind of like my outlet as well. That keeps me relaxed. So I don't know. I feel like if I hadn't been fucking on Tower Power, I'd probably be going a little crazy because doing the serious shit all the time gets old. So it's nice to just cut up, but and say awful shit. So
it'd be now the Four Pony Boys. What's that all about? That's a spinoff of a spinoff, right?
The Four Horsemen, I called them.
No, it's an original concept. No, it's definitely an unabashed ripoff. Although, like, it is like the name is a ripoff, but I was going more for like we've had on Tower Power. Sometimes we will call like what's called big brain time, where because I mean all of us like we goof off and do like make silly jokes and shit, but like we all are like libertarian autists that do like sometimes we'll accidentally get sucked into like a serious like discussion. And so then it's like it's kind of off brand for the show, and we'll kind of joke and call it big brain time because like people aren't coming there for that, but then we'll just kind of accidentally be like, we got to discuss this. And so that was the vibe I was going for that show. I want to dial it back a little bit instead of like the 6 people in the show. So 4 kind of is a good number.
Right.
And then I figured, so I figured the prime 4 would be me, Top, Clint, and Reed, and then we kind of go from there. And kind of the same, it's kind of similar template to kind of probably what you guys are doing with 4 Horsemen. The only difference is you guys do Eric, or well, not you, but you, Eric, and Reed and Ryan, and then have a different guest every time. Whereas I already have the 4, but the way I see it in my head, I kind of like the idea of what we do with Tower Power, where we have 6 hosts, because we don't always show up to every episode. But it's the idea of that, like, if someone's got something going on, whatever. Doesn't cause issues of scheduling. It makes scheduling way more flexible. So I figure with this, the way I'll work it is like, let's say, for example, I get Dave Smith for the next one. I'm not saying I do. I'm just, that's an example, first thing in mind. Then I just have one of the guys sit out and, whoever's willing to. And we kind of, switch around like that. That way we always have an extra guy in case someone, I don't know, can't make it or what have you. So, yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's definitely a cool format. Yeah, I mean, that way you got it covered, and you still be able to, talk about stuff. It's like multiple limbs, and even if you chop one off, you're still going to be able to limp on, right?
Yeah, I mean, the first one already got nuked off YouTube. It was actually doing good numbers on YouTube, and then it got nuked. It does decent. It's doing decent numbers on my audio and Odyssey, but I mean, content like that, the ones that like are kind of more like catchy, it really does screw you when it gets taken off YouTube. But not a big deal. I generally get more on audio, so whatever.
We've been lucky with 4 Horsemen. It's hosted on Reed's channel, obviously. I think only one of them has been nuked, and it was the one I wasn't even in. I was traveling, and they had Adam and Dawson, I think, and Fitz, DJ Thermal Detonator, I think, and they went really deep.
Wasn't that on Reed's channel, Eric, or was that on our channel?
No, it was on Reed's channel. I mean, and Jackman Radio, we've only had one video nuked, and that was talking about the Flu World Order. We had on, God, I never remember her name, Mike. The hell is
Mary Holland from RFK Jr.'s group, Children's Health Defense, and she's a vaccine injury lawyer, an expert, Harvard educated, a really brilliant,
sharp woman,
competent, sharp person. And we had a great discussion, and just a regular discussion, not saying one way or another whatever. It thing got nuked after, I don't know, 5 hours.
A few hours they nuked it, yeah.
Before I could even get it on our audio on Podbean, so it's gone.
Yeah, we lost it. We lost it forever. It belongs to time now. But
I think we're allowed to talk about that now. I saw something on Twitter where they shared something where I guess now they changed the terms of service where you can talk about that now.
Well, the thing is, Jose, what we were talking about with Mary Holland is now kind of all
out in the open. It's common knowledge,
It's like common knowledge, yeah.
Well, as long as the CDC says what I can put in my butt, and that includes monkeypox vials, I'm going to do it. We're going to do it, Fire Pixie. We're going to do it fast.
All right, we got a couple of chats here I want to get to because we're comment on. JC sent us a $4.99 super chat for the InfoWars Lego Fund. Let me tell you, JC, I was doing 24-hour days, but then I went into the quantum realm, and I'm doing 48-hour days now. We're doing what we used to do in one day. We're doing 2 days what we used to do in one day, and it's just tiring. I would go back in time and rebuild Sandy Hook, and I would just go back in time and not talk about it, not talk about Wayne Carver, not talk about all the the shooters in the woods. But that's neither here nor there. Infowars.com, save Infowars.
Not to get you nuked, just to quickly go over it. Have you guys ever taken a deep dive in Handy Sook? Have you ever taken a dive there?
I looked at some of the anomalies early on, some of the stuff about maybe there was more than one shooter, but I never was like it didn't happen or the people didn't die. I never thought that.
I don't assert that either, but it glows a little bit. That's for sure.
I mean, all these things can glow in the dark, man, no matter what it is. And I get it. It's emotional because you're talking about children and what happened with the parents, I think, is awful. Nobody should be harassing anybody. I think that's disgusting. But I think Alex Jones had a right to talk about it and to question you have a right to question any big event. And he got himself in some hot water, I think, because he didn't do his due diligence. He would rush on air with half the facts and present it as such. If his opinion was that it was a false flag and it didn't happen or whatever he wanted to call it, he has a right to, if it's wrong, he has a right to be wrong. We have a right to be wrong, but
I also hate though that the idea that the common narrative with stuff like this, well, they'll say stuff like that, like, how irresponsible you're being coming without all the facts. Or I guess it'd be one thing if you did present it, and even then I don't think there should be any legal or any sort of recourse, but maybe you could make a case that, hey, that was shitty of you to do.
Yeah.
But like everything I do, everything I talk about is mostly me pulling out of my ass. The only thing I'm certain of in this life is that I'm not certain of anything. So the idea that like it's because someone could probably make the same case with my OKC thing, even with as much work as Richard Booth's. I'm sure there's probably some factoid somewhere they could make the case of like, oh, this is irresponsible of you doing or whatever. So the idea that like, I don't know, I just always thought that was silly, that talking point people use to like come at them.
Right.
It's one thing you could be like, hey, that was a little bit shitty of you, or you're wrong. But like, the narrative of like, well, this is harmful. Yeah, kind of, maybe, but you're getting a really ambiguous, weird, vague territory,
Yeah, well, they've been gunning for him for years, man.
Yeah.
They wanted to knock him down a peg, anything they could do, man, to knock him down a peg. Because I've known about Alex Jones for a long time, probably since 2005, 2006. Been impersonating him that long too, believe it or not. Been impersonating Alex Jones since freshman year of college. I've never followed him as like, that's my news. I'll look at it every now and again as like, oh, what's Alex talking about? Or this is entertaining, but a lot of the stuff he does talk about, it has ended up being true and being over the nose. So they're really trying to paint him with the Sandy Hook thing. And he even makes the point, like, did the New York Times ever apologize for lying about the weapons of mass destruction that we spent $7 trillion on in the Middle East and 1 million people got murdered and 5,000 of our troops and totally ruined things like that? So where's the accountability in the mainstream media? He makes a great point about that. So of course they're going after him. They want to make an example of him. When they deplatformed back in 2018, I was saying like, okay, now it's Alex Jones. Who is it going to be next? And you can see how they've really tightened the reins since then on other content creators. And they use the Alex Jones argument to justify that. So I don't want anybody's speech censored. If you don't like it or you're offended by it, don't fucking watch it. Change the channel.
Yeah, now they're doing it to Andrew Tate. I don't even know what the angle is of why they had to pull him off. It makes no sense to me. It was just what?
I had never even heard of Andrew Tate until the last week.
I saw a couple clips, but never anything that intrigued me too much.
His dad was CIA.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
this guy. I don't even know who you guys are talking
British, about. Like podcaster, influencer, bro. Wasn't he MMA or
British?
something? I'm pretty sure he's like.
If he's British he's knocked out that accent pretty well.
I don't know what his whole story is, but he's like been all over Twitter because they nuked his accounts. And
he's just peak awesome dude is basically what he is. That's what he is. Like,
peak
I
awesome.
fuck chicks do what I want. Let me tell you to be a dude, bro. It's fucking awesome.
So he's like hyper Chad.
He's masculine, yeah, they don't like that.
He's Giga Chad.
He's like Jordan Peterson, but like from the vibe of like, I haven't quite settled down yet.
Yeah. Make your bed, Jose. Make sure you make your bed and eat your broccoli. I didn't eat it and I got hooked on benzos. It was awful. I had to go to Russia and eat steak.
I guess there's some angle that a lot of people bring up about like sex trafficking or women trafficking, which I don't know the truth to that though, because I hear that. I hear trafficking, and I'm like, okay, was it really trafficking? Is he really like abducting people, forcing them to do stuff, or is this just some guy who was like a pimp at one point? Like, these are very different things.
What kind of trafficking are we talking here? Was it like one of the Taken movies with Liam Neeson and a bunch of leather-clad Euro trash for 2 hours getting their asses kicked?
I will come for you, and I will beat you, and I will steal your jacket, and I will resell it.
Or is it just some dude who made you made a deal with that? Hey, if anyone fucks with you, I'll beat the shit out of them, and you give me a certain cut, and whatever. Like, that's a very different thing. So I don't know.
By the time we hear about shit, man, we don't know what the truth is and what reality is, and it's
here, boys.
Hard to believe anything that you see or even try to understand it. So I don't know. I'd never heard of him, and he was all the buzz this week on Twitter, and of course Primetime 99 and Portnoy beefing with each other has been giving me oxygen personally.
Yeah, I don't even know what their beef is over, but I'm here for it, and it's amazing.
Exactly. Well, Primetime, did his thing out in Vegas, the city council, and made like a gambling. Part of his shtick was he was a guy who got addicted to gambling, and he lost all his money, and he hired a prostitute and lost all his money. And one of the guys at Barstool retweeted it, just like, "Hey, this is funny," and he didn't. I guess he hadn't watched the whole thing of Primetime, and Barstool was triggered on making fun of people who have gambling addictions or saying anything bad about gambling, because I guess Portnoy sold the company or it's owned by a gambling outfit. I mean, I never watch Portnoy. I'm not really a fan. I don't watch Barstool. I don't really give a shit about what that guy says.
Mhm.
But I think what happened was he made the guy on Barstool who had retweeted Primetime like take it down or get rid of it, and then that kind of started a whole war. And Primetime called him out, and they went back and forth. And Portnoy said, "I hate this guy. He sucks. He's a scumbag. You know, he just goes and makes fun of people at city council meetings." And then it's just back and forth bullshit. But it was good for both their brands. Both their followings went up, and they dominated Twitter for like 2 or 3 days.
Have you seen are you aware of the troll? I guess this is going like deep into like Twitter a little bit, but are you aware of the ongoing troll with Portnoy about him supposedly like, frequenting a glory hole in like Kentucky or something? Have you heard that troll?
I've seen the memes, and I've seen like Business Insider headlines, and I don't know what's fake and what is actually.
I mean, it's an ongoing troll, but it's amazing that this happens. And now,
incredible.
anytime you go to anything shitting on him, it's all just people like, I saw him sucking dick in a glory hole in Kentucky.
You could say that Portnoy had sex, but he definitely didn't. You could say that, Galison, couldn't you?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
We get a sticker here from John B. Thank you so much for the super sticker, Sloop John B. We love you. Good to see you in here. We got a couple of.
I didn't even ask. This is PG-13, right? I just can't drop hard R's, right?
Yeah, we're trying to. We don't want to get nuked, Galison.
I mean, I had no intention of, but I just want to know where the line is. So
yeah, definitely, we want to avoid that.
Yeah, we want to be entertaining and a little bit risque, but we want to keep our channel. I mean, we do want to get a Rockfin going and probably an Odyssey, and we are moving into a studio space in September and going to spend some time building that up. So we want to diversify, but for now, YouTube is still the best platform, man. I mean, it's still where everyone is. So as much as the censorship sucks and their algorithms and guidelines don't make a lot of sense, you just got to try to walk that line.
The weird thing is I've never got for that ever. I mean, not that I do it a lot on my channel, but yeah, I haven't gotten for that, but whatever.
Jose follows not a podcast very closely. I don't know what that
means, I'm
Jace,
assuming that's some sort of, I don't really actually follow them very closely, honestly. NAP, not a podcast. I mean, I think I watched like one of the episodes. It's kind of funny. I mean, I liked it. I mean, I don't have any issue with them. I just don't really follow them. I know there was like a weird ancient beef, sort of. So,
Fire Pixie, Corn Pop would like the stream. You're goddamn right, Corn Pop would like it. He's a tough dude. He was a bad dude, Fire Pixie. I met him at the community pool down in Atlanta when I was a lifeguard down there with the hairs on my legs and the cockroaches. Anyways.
JC said in the chat that it was a joke, which I assumed it was. I'm assuming it was some sort of reference to an ancient beef. I don't know. Although it was never really that serious in my opinion, but yeah.
Yeah. Shoe on head though, Jose, when you guys had her on Tower Gang, that was everything.
Yeah, no, that was great.
that was definitely a banner appearance.
Yeah.
It was a big get. Yeah.
We're for Horsemen, we're having Phil LeBont from All That Remains on Sunday. So
I heard that should be good. That should be good.
We're gonna have him on. And
when's Fuentes coming on?
Oh God! You want to get your channel nuked? Get him on.
Yeah.
Dude, I want Fuentes on. I mean, I don't really care to have him on my channel. Honestly,
Primetime had him on Conspiracy Castle, and to my knowledge, that has not been nuked.
I mean,
I don't know. Fuentes, I'm not really that interested in him. Kind of like what Reed has been saying. I never really heard about him before. I never watched his shit. I don't know.
He's okay.
I don't find him all that interesting or like.
He's kind of funny sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, I'm not interested in having him on my show. I really, really want him on Tower Power Hour because I do think.
He would be. Yeah, he'd be a perfect kind of ghoul to get on Tower Power.
So is he just like a more right wing, more like openly racist version of Ben Shapiro, or like what is he? Is he a shitlord, or is he like what's his? I don't really.
I think he's more racist in the way that Tower Power Hour is racist. Like none of us are actually really racist.
Yeah, it's casual jokes.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's like uses humor to get attention, and
it can't be racist when you have Top on there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
TopLobsta.
Yeah,
we love Top. I like Bottom Lobster too, though. Quite frankly, Bottom Lobster does a great job.
Lindsey Graham, Bottom Lobster. Well, Reed said the vibe that he got when he was out in Vegas and went to the screening about Fuentes' whole deal and scene was like a bunch of repressed young 20, 25-year-old dudes who probably have never seen a pair of boobs in their lives.
Yeah,
and they like hang on the dude's every word, So
yeah,
I don't know, man. But I mean, for Tower Power Hour, he would be a prime guest for that for sure.
Yeah, if anyone has a hookup, let me know. We've been trying to set that up. I don't know if Reed has a hookup. If he is, he's being stingy. So I don't know.
No, I think Reed's, I don't know, trying to get him, but Fire Pixie says Scott Horton level, not quite Ryan Dawson level yet. I don't know what you're referring to there, Fire. I'm trying to go through the
From the chats.
JC had another comment here, I think, related to what we're talking about, Alex Jones. I don't like this precedent where emotional distress is enough to completely ruin people's lives over speech alone, and the left blindly cheers for it. Absolutely. I mean, remember the left years ago when they were, saying Big Pharma is the enemy, and we got to take down Big Pharma. We need to expose them, and the Sacklers, and this and that, and Purdue, and now all of a sudden the left is like they love Big Pharma.
Yeah.
So
it's also
like
it irritates me too. Maybe it's because I have done a deep dive on that specific one. Once again, I'm not trying to get nuked, so I'm not going to say it. But I have done a deep dive, and once again, I'm not saying I'm convinced one way or the other. But there are definitely questions that are raised, and so the assumption there is that he's wrong. I don't know if he's entirely wrong. I mean, he's probably wrong in some sense. I don't know. There are definitely, if you dig into that, and the fact that they get so enraged about it, if anything, makes me kind of like, why are you so upset about this? Kind of makes me
you should
wonder.
be able to have a discussion about it.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where, like, am I over the or is he over the target? Is that what's going on here? I don't know. I mean, it could be one or the other. It could be he's hitting on something. There's definitely some weird shit there. That's for sure. That's all I'm gonna say. If anyone knows, I have like if anyone wants, hit me up. I found like a 3-hour video digging deep into it. I mean, obviously, I don't know the validity of all the stuff. I'm gonna deep dive. I want to get Jinx on to do it one of these days. That's my goal there. To bring him to break that down.
Yeah, I didn't watch Clint with Jinx. I mean, did you watch that?
Yeah, I watched it. That was like probably my favorite.
How did it go? I mean, is he a dude who actually knows his shit, or is he just kind of?
I don't know. I mean, either way, I don't care. I'd have him on to talk it in a moment, just because Jinx is everything. But
yeah.
I don't know how he is. Kind of very, he is like exactly like if you follow him on like how he was on there is kind of what you would think. He is a little bit of like a very base schizo, like kind of all over the place. So I don't know. It probably would be hard to keep him on track, but I would either way, no matter whether it's a train wreck or it's like a beautiful cohesive trail of thought. Either way, I'd love it. It'd be amazing. So yeah.
And the other episode that I just watched that you did was the one with the fellow there they were trying to set up with the Whitmore plot. And I saw in the news today or yesterday two of the alleged co-conspirators were charged, right? Or they've been officially sentenced.
Yep, I have him coming back on Tuesday to talk about that. One of the key things I'll bring up, I don't know all the specific details or technical terms, but apparently, because the big thing is these guys were arguing, their defense was it was entrapment. Caserta and I forget the other guy got off. They got acquitted. And then these other two guys had a retrial. I don't remember the exact reason why they had to get a retrial. But apparently in this retrial, they didn't allow them to use, I believe it was the text messages or something between the informants, feds, whatever you want to call them, and their targets or whatever, which is like the majority of where all the information was at. It shows the nature of their relationship, which would make sense. I don't know what the reasoning was. That's what would show like their relationship and how they were manipulating them and getting. It would be a crux to making a entrapment argument. And then also on top of that, Brandon Caserta, he actually went there to testify for them, but before he could, he ended up pleading the fifth. And I saw him on another show, and he explained the reason why he pled the fifth was because they threatened him I believe they charged him on the federal level for his previous charge, and that's what he got acquitted for. But they threatened to charge him on the state level if he testified. Which is it's just wild. Like, if you're trying to get down to the truth of it, like, why would you be impeding the defense in any way? Like, that makes no sense to me. If you're trying to get justice, if that's the goal of the justice system, like, why would you do that? Like, this guy got off, and either you think this guy is a criminal and should go to jail, or you don't. Because if you do think he's a criminal and should go to jail, then what you should do is then you should charge him with the state crime regardless. If you don't, then like, why are you threatening him with it right now? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So I actually have him coming back on Tuesday, and we're going to break down because he's actually followed the trial very closely. I'm probably going to read up on the trial a lot more this weekend because I've read up a little bit. A good person I would suggest, if anyone's really interested in it, Radix Verum. It's this chick on YouTube. I believe she's actually in Michigan right now. I found her because she was one of the only other people that had him on. And that's how I found her. Because I was I believe the second person to get him, and she was the third. But like, she has done a ton of work on this. She has like a Substack, writes on it a bunch. She's actually who I'll probably be binging through her work over the weekend to try to have a good conversation with Brandon. But there is a lot of wild stuff that came out, and I mean, I haven't really dug the information enough to be able, regurgitate it well here. But there's a lot of weird stuff in the stuff, a lot of crazy stuff that went on in that was revealed in the trials, which I'm assuming probably weren't able to get revealed in these latest two trials, and that's why they ended up getting convicted. So, but yeah, I'll have Brandon on Tuesday, and we'll talk about that more.
And wasn't he talking about one of them like just trying to really buddy up to him and be friendly and bring him out for a meal and be kind to him and
I don't remember that specifically, but I know the big one was Adam Fox was one of the characters, which I believe they described him as like an indigent, which I don't know if he was necessarily like a homeless, but it was kind of like a guy who didn't really have his shit together, kind of, and that was the guy that they really latched onto and kind of manipulated a lot. Like the main guy, I forget his name. I wish I could remember it like tip of my tongue, but the main guy who was like the head of that group, who was an informant, was like totally took him under his wing, almost acted like a father figure to him, like was manipulating the shit out of him.
Basically groomed him to take it.
Basically, and I don't know exactly.
Like his handler.
Yeah, essentially, and most of these things at least this is my impression. Most of these things that they supposedly got them for were things that like I don't know, just spicy stuff said in group chats or stuff they said when they're drinking or whatever. Like it wasn't like there was any actual legitimate plan to go fucking kidnap the Michigan governor. Like, that was ridiculous. Like, and when you see some of the stuff, most of the stuff that was presented in court a lot of time was just like out of context, little clips. It's like, and I mean, I've said way worse stuff in my group chats and stuff. Like made way, jokes if you took out of context or, things said out of context, they could be like, oh my God, you want to do what to federal agents? Oh my God. Like, yeah. I mean,
so a lot of sensationalism going on, a lot of taking, stuff out of context and then amplifying it and sensationalizing it basically. And then passing it off.
One of the informants was sleeping with one of the people. So like it was a chick. So like,
oh really?
I don't know if they've confirmed they were banging, but it was confirmed they were in the same bed. Like
maybe you could say maybe what could you say, Galason? Maybe that they were. You could say that they had sex, but they definitely didn't fuck.
They didn't fuck. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm like PG-13R. I think you only get one fuck in a PG-13. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Jose, dude, you're doing awesome work, man. I've been really loving your show lately, and I watched the one you did with Duncan Lemp's girlfriend, man. And that fucking pulled at my heartstrings too, dude. And your passion for these stories has really shown through too. Because I know we joke all the time about all kinds of shit, but when it comes down to it, man, the real big issues like the no knock stuff and probable cause and people's privacy. And this is really what the fight is all about for liberty, is about our generation and the next generation. You said you have kids, man. You got to be worried about what kind of country they're going to grow up in. So that's really come through on your recent broadcasts. And yeah, I've been loving your stuff lately.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this, it's like, I mean, in my show, I've talked a lot about like egoism stuff. A lot of this kind of comes from like a selfish kind of place, because a lot of these are people that these stories are things I feel sympathetic to. Like, I feel like this is things that could be me, and this is why I want to talk about them. Like the OKC, I got the Yiki is what brought me down. And the biggest thing I think that, I don't know, I actually only pieced this together after the fact. Yiki looks a lot like my best friend. Like, he does. And so, like, I mean, if I said that, he'd probably like, what the hell? You think I just look like a generic black dude? Because he'd probably be like, what do you think all black dudes look alike? But anyways, they look very alike. And then also the sympathetic nature of it. Then with Lemp, it's like Lemp is when you look into the stats on no-knock warrants and like how often they go to the wrong house, also the nature of the things Duncan supposedly did or did not do, you realize this literally could be any of us. Same thing with Brandon Caserta. I felt a lot of like kinship with him because he started getting into this stuff because a lot of the same reasons I started getting into this sphere I'm in is because once the lockdown started happening, they're like, hey, we need to start linking up. We need to start connecting. like before I started podcasting, I actually had another venture where I was kind of trying to do something similar, but not in like a militia way, but more in like a let's group up, kind of like meet up, stuff like that, and kind of create like a network of us, and that was kind of what he was going for, and you realize that like, and the stuff they got them on for as well. It's like there's so much stuff that's like they could get any one of us. If there was in the Tower Power Hour group chat, if there was an informant in there, because we have our one for the show, and we have like a big one, which is like the original Tower Gang people that like probably like 50 some odd people in there. But like there could be an informant in there for all we know, and they could be collecting stuff over the years, and guess what? We got you. Like, and with the same amount of stuff they had with the Caserta people, or not Caserta, but with the Michigan people.
Yeah, and with Duncan Lemp, someone anonymously said, "Oh, we think he has illegal firearms," and I don't think they've released who that was or who supposedly like narked on him. And it's like, it's almost like the feds, they want to do entrapment, and they want to get someone to commit a crime in order to take them down and justify their budgets and say, "Hey, look at what we did. We got this domestic terrorist," and they of course have been trying to do it with the January 6th nonsense. I mean, which Max Blumenthal brilliantly dubbed a low IQ riot, which, that's, if that was really an organized thing, man, it would have looked more like what happened in, what was it, Indonesia or what country where they stormed
Sri Lanka?
Yeah, I mean, that was like...
I mean, it was organized, just not by the people you think it was, so...
It kind of glowed a little bit, Jose, didn't it?
Dude, it all boils down to that Spider-Man meme where all the Spider-Men are all pointing at each other. It just says FBI, FBI.
What was his name, Jose? The guy saying, "We got to go into the Capitol."
I always mix it up. Is it Ray or Mike Epps?
Ray
One of
Epps.
them's an actor,
Ray
and
Epps.
one's the guy.
Omar Epps.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was glowing so bright that day. He was the lady in red.
Right, like a diamond.
So gorgeous as you do tonight.
A couple more chats here, boys.
I've never seen you glow so bright. We're going to storm the Capitol.
Governor
You watch
Ventura.
that?
Which one?
The Prey movie.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
Governor
was it good?
Ventura, JC wants to know, did Jesse Ventura like the new Prey movie?
I did. I thought it was great. It was high paced. It was interesting. It was a nice take on it, and I liked that it was just woke enough. You had a very strong female warrior. Her brother gave her strength, believed in her, and mentored her, and she proved herself to be a worthy warrior going up against the Predator. So I liked it. I did. I liked it.
Was it good though? You guys watched it? Was it?
It was.
Yeah,
I
it was?
I thought
Okay.
I
it
was actually surprised how much I enjoyed it. Mike watched it first and said it was really good, so I watched it at his recommendation.
Because
my
I do
opinion
think
is-
I think a lot of people are seeing immediately like, oh my god, a woman, and like I don't know, like watch the
Dude.
movie first or wait for
Yeah.
reviews to come out because I don't know. Because it's also like in my head, I was like, okay, or it could be that she's part of a tribe and they work together, they use their skills, whatever. It
Yeah.
wasn't like she was like one-on-one, like let's fisticuffs, like let's do that. Like obviously, like she would lose. She is a woman. Like let's be real. Like in that scenario.
The end of the movie, she does bring the Predator a sandwich. I don't want to spoil too much, but she does bring the Predator a nice Navajo sandwich. So
They realized that they loved each other, and they took off in the Predator ship, and they're going to have half Comanche, half
trans
Predator, trans
Yeah.
babies.
they're gonna have trans babies. So no, it's
And
worth it,
aliens.
man. It was a nice 80 minutes of entertainment, a nice escape, and it was definitely an improvement, Mike, on that fucking horrible last one there.
Yeah,
the
Predators
last one?
or The Predator from 2018, which I thought was
So
garbage.
bad.
Is that the one that dropped him off on the planet?
That's Predators, right, Mike?
So Predators from 2010 with Adrian Brody with
That's
Lawrence
really good.
Fishburne. That one was really good.
Pretty good.
Danny Trejo.
Yeah, that one was actually really good.
I like that
Robert
one a lot.
Rodriguez directed or
And they made
produced
another
that
one
one.
after that. I don't even remember that one.
So they did Predator 2, which I really liked, which was an underrated one with Danny Glover in the city
Yeah,
that
that
came
one's
out in
good.
1990. That's a
Debatably
dude,
better than the first one.
Gary
Some people,
Busey?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that it's just as good as the first one.
I
I think the first one edges it out, in my opinion, because it's just so friggin' iconic and classic with Arnold and, Carl Weathers and just the whole, Ventura with the gun. But I think the series, after Predator 2 kind of lost its way for a while, especially with the Alien versus Predator stuff, which wasn't that great. But Prey really brings it back to a more stripped down, fast-paced, origin type story, and it connects to the second one too in a pretty unique way. So I would say it's definitely worth watching. It was entertaining, and it'll be interesting to see where they go with it, for sure. I think we got a couple more chats here before we wind down. Fire Pixie, do you think Jesse Ventura would ever take Lindsey Graham to the movies?
Governor, would you take me to the movie? Would you accompany a woman to the movie?
Possibly, Senator, but you'd have to give me a promise and a guarantee that during the movie you wouldn't finger my bunghole.
Well, I was going to say, we're going to get some popcorn. We're going to get some salt and some butter in that popcorn, and we're going to stick a South Carolinian corn dog in it.
They get the senior discount and watch Top Gun. Matt, oh yeah, Lindsay loved the new Top Gun.
Dude, I have no desire to watch that movie. I don't know why. I just couldn't care less. I don't know.
Matt Taibbi wrote something so brilliant about the new Top Gun that just really slapped with me and resonated with me, in that it was just, obviously just total propaganda for the military-industrial complex and militarism and America's dominance around the world. But also, it just unabashedly was in that vein of like 80s, 90s action movie. We don't give a fuck. We're America. And it was entertaining. And I signed up for Scientology after watching it. So
I mean, I can respect it for that being that kind of like the Expendables movies when they came out. You're like, this is just stupid violence and it's awesome, but I love it. Like, I'm sure if I watched a Top Gun, I'd enjoy it. But it's also like I know I'm just gonna watch like an hour and a half of like, boom boom pew pew pew. Like cool.
and what was funny, they were ambiguous about who the enemy was because. They want to have it premiere in China, and they want to make a lot of money from the Chinese, so they're not going to be overtly the enemies. We don't want to put, piss off Russia and Putin too much, so maybe they weren't the enemies. So there was an enemy, but we were very ambiguous about who it was. So it was, it's worth the watch. It was going to entertain. I will support anything Tom Cruise and the Sea Org and Scientology do. Just for the lulz.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's got two more Mission Impossible movies coming out too, so that's going to be.
That'll be good.
We're
here for that, Mike.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to make The Eyes Wide Shut 2, unfortunately, so we're not going to get that one. That's one of my favorite Tom Cruise flicks. You ever see that one?
Yeah.
I've never seen that one, no.
Oh,
like
dude,
we just rewatched it. Yeah, it's worth it. So I tell people this, I watched it before I knew about Epstein and about Franklin scandal and elite pedophilia. So then I watch it now with those eyes, and it's like watching a whole different movie. You pick up on shit, man, and you see shit, and you're like, holy fuck, man. Stanley Kubrick was making a big statement with this movie. Big statement. He was saying some shit, man.
He's like, what are you going to do? I'll talk about the moon, bitch.
Oh, yeah, The Shining, that was all about him confessing to faking the moon landing. Totally, dude, 100%.
And Tom had sex, Mike, on the moon, but they definitely didn't fuck.
Yeah, question for Jose from Fire Pixie. Would Jose ever be interested in having an investigator that went deep into Waco and Ruby Ridge?
I'm not against the idea. I'd want some sort of like fresh angle or something because those are things that have been covered to death. And don't be wrong, like I've already kind of gone down those. And like the interesting thing about like not Waco, but like OKC is there's so many different angles that it goes so deep. I mean, I would be, I'm open to it. I guess I would have to like find someone and look through their work and see if there's some sort of angle. I don't know because. I mean, I feel like, from the bits I've seen, it seems to be most ground has been covered there, and those are fairly, straightforward when you start digging into them. I mean, maybe there's some angles, but I don't know, especially because it seems like those were just straight up, like, feds killed people, and, like, that's, like, I mean, obviously there's interesting angles to take there, but, I mean, the interesting thing about OKC is it's like, okay, but feds they may have had some part in killing people and it's a little bit different, the OKC thing, than like, hey, there are these dissidents and we went and killed them, as opposed to, hey, here's all these innocents and some person we're propping up as a dissident killed them and we may or may not have some connection to some extent. I mean, I'm not one that would say with OKC the feds straight up did it, but their hands were in the mix in some way. Like they may have very well have, because there's a lot of like talk about like the aspect of supposedly they thought maybe at different times. There was weird stuff along those that kind of imply maybe they changed at the time. You also got to think how intelligence works. I mean, even if he was some sort of Fed operative, McVeigh, like it's like I'm sure information gets tiered. It goes different through the levels. So maybe he changed something. Maybe somebody in the mid-level had a different idea that somebody at the top level. I don't know. There's a million different ways this could go. But I don't know. The OKC thing is like I guess it just interested me more. It's also like I don't feel like a ton of people have really dug into it. I'm not against it. So I guess it would depend. I mean, mostly with my show, I just follow where my interests, bring me.
Right.
That's what we try to do too, man. And I think that's why, when you're building an audience, man, people see that. They see the excitement, they see the passion, the level of interest that you have for it. And that's what we've been trying to do here with Jackman Radio. And it's, do what you love, man. Go with your passions. Life is short, and you do your thing, and, you stand out when you're authentic. So where can people support you, Jose? Where can they find your stuff? And what do you got coming down the pipe?
Well, my show is No Way Jose. I'm on YouTube, all the major auto podcatchers, Odyssey as well. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm on Twitter at Senor Jose 2020. I have a knack of getting nuked. It's my third account. So, I mean, Twitter is a place where I do the most, interact, if you want to be along for the show, have fun. But if you just genuinely just want to be able to like have a, link to connect with me, and you'd want to have a backup in case I get nuked off Twitter. Facebook's a good place for that. I don't really do anything on Facebook except for drop promos, but obviously there's Messenger, and that's a good way to get in contact with me. And it's all that Facebook's probably going to be there forever because I don't really do anything on it. I don't see me getting nuked. So I'm on Facebook as Jose Galison. If you want to support me, patreon.com, just Jose2020. But stuff coming down the pipeline. I have some good stuff coming up. Tuesday, I have Brandon Caserta coming back on. Which if you haven't picked up on the context cues here, Brandon Caserta was one of the individuals that was one of the defendants in the whole Michigan kidnapping thing. So I have him coming on to kind of talk about I've already had him on, so if so I had him on before. That was more of like his side of the story. And I also did another show with this guy named Ken Silva before I had him on to kind of give the basic breakdown. And now we're going to go deep, kind of deep into the trial, kind of go into more details and the weird stuff going on. I think it's Thursday. I have Aaron from Timeline Earth coming on. We're going to do start a live reading series of, if you're into more of my theory stuff, because I only recently started getting into like this type of stuff, like, like the Duncan Lemp, the Michigan, the OKC. I only started kind of getting that because I kind of just follow where my interests bring me. But I've been doing a lot of theory, and I do theory a lot as well. And I'm going to be doing Agorist class theory, which is Konkin's class theory. And I have Aaron from Timeline Earth coming on because anyone is familiar with him. He's a semi fan of agorism. He also has like a weird aesthetic for like commie stuff, which anyone who knows class theory is highly related to like commie stuff, has a lot of commie implications. So that should be fun. And then I have another OKC series coming on that following Tuesday, or OKC episode. So we're continuing. I took like a month off because Richard Booth had some scheduled stuff that came up. But I think we'll probably knock it out in like two or three more episodes, at least 2 episodes. And hopefully we can knock that out in this month because I think his schedule's going to get weird after that. But it should be coming to an end there. I highly suggest going to check out the series. There's a lot there. Share it around if you can. It's doing pretty decent numbers, like really good numbers. I'm really surprised how many people really got into it because, anytime you do like a long series, people are going to you're probably going to like lose people because people are like, oh my God, I don't want to watch 20 hours or something. But I'm kind of surprised the support this has gotten. It's probably the thing I've gotten the most compliments and stuff on. So, and that's all due to Richard Booth. So I highly suggest you guys go check him out. He's definitely, it's all thanks to him. So, but I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun. I'm always glad to come on again whenever you want. So, yeah.
Oh, definitely do. We'll definitely have to have you on again. It was a blast. We appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. It's a great chat, and we will be back next time. I think we have some stuff lined up for next week, but you might see us over the weekend. You'll see Eric on Naturalist Capitalist, Reed Coverdale's channel with the 4 Horsemen this Sunday.
Sunday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Ryan Dawson, Reed Coverdale, myself, and Mr. Phil Labont from the band All That Remains. So that will be a fun episode. Will be a lot of
maybe
cool
Lindsey
stuff.
Graham will pop in. Who knows?
Lindsey Graham will pop in. Yeah, but thanks for coming on, Jose. I love what you do, man.
Following week I'm doing a 4 Pony Boys, and we have Phil Labonte on.
And Ryan
My
Dawson's
Pony. Yeah, I just think of the song "My Pony" by Genuine.
Yeah.
5 going for it.
Yeah.
My Galison.
Riding Gallison's pony.
We're going to end on a song. We love you guys. Peace, and we'll see you next time.